Hi, my name is Thomas Ousterhout, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer of Hird.
Can you tell me a little bit about your own mental health journey?
Yes, well, it started when I was a teenager where I had my own battles with depression and suicide, which of course sounds like a terrible experience, and it was, but I'm very glad that it happened because what happened was a journey towards learning about my mind and the power of being able to conquer your mind and develop yourself. I was after my suicide attempt when I was right before I was 16. I was sent to a lockdown institution in Utah. Um, I was in three places for a total of 2 years, but the main one was a lockdown institution for in Utah, where basically they just broke down my conceptions of what I was capable of and taught me about the mind and taught me all about how I can develop myself and strengthen myself and motivate myself and learn about myself and I got really fascinated with psychology and ever since then I thought that I was going to be a therapist so I could provide the same resources to others and the same help that I was also given. Um, when I went to school in Los Angeles for my bachelor, I got a bachelor in psychology. And then when I went to Denmark because I have my mom is Danish and I'm half Danish. I'm also a Danish citizen. So I went to Denmark just to check it out, and I loved it so much that I stayed, and I continued my education. But at the time, I wasn't allowed to study a master's in psychology because that program was in Danish, and I hadn't passed the proper Danish language requirements. So I did something else called IT and cognition, which is a combination of psychology and computer science. And that's where I got into brain scanning and neurotech. And so I fell in love with neurotech, finished my master's in specializing in neurotech, did a PhD in neurotech, cognitive neuroscience specifically, worked for a couple Danish neurotech companies, and then decided to build my own neurotech company, which focused on mental health, which was my original passion for psychology in the first place. And so now we use neurotech to help people with mental health. So it's been an incredible journey, and none of it would have started if I hadn't been depressed and suicidal as a teenager. So I owe everything to that experience. Which I know most people would say was, they wish it away, but I'm grateful that I had those experiences.
Yeah, sometimes the lived experience, is the best teacher sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of times the things that we hope never happens ends up being the greatest things that ever happened to us. So it's funny how life works out that way.
So can you tell me a little bit about your company?
Yes, I can. So you've probably seen in movies people put a thing on their head and then they can either control something or something's controlling them, or The Matrix, for example. There's different ways to measure the brain or stimulate the brain. One of them that I specialize in is something called EEG. And the way that works is if you've seen in hospitals this heart thing that goes doot 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 doot, we're all familiar with that. That's called ECG or EKG, and that's measuring the electricity going to the heart. Something called EEG is the electricity in the brain. And there's different regions in the brain that are responsible for different activities, such as vision, motor control, sensation, language, all sorts of things. And if you measure the electricity in different parts of the brain, you can detect signals that correspond to those things. And so we're actually using these are actually brain scanners. I know they just go on like normal ear pods, but these little pointy things there, those are electrodes, and so it's measuring. Yeah, if you want to see, yeah. So they just look like pointy things. I mean, it's nothing. Yeah, and they sit behind your ear and they can actually measure the electrical activity in the brain. And so what we do specifically is focus on we detect how stressed you are, your mental effort, and your focus levels, and we help people be more aware of themselves, be more aware of stress, be more aware of how much work they're using to solve tasks, so they can be more in tune with themselves and help themselves do meditation exercises to learn how to improve their productivity. Our principle is basically the same as how people like to have wearables to track on their wrists or watch to track on their smartphones to track how many steps they've taken or how much sleep they've done. the ability to track yourself nudges people to actually put effort into those things. Now, to walking 10,000 steps, that's a thing. And it's only a thing because you can track it. Before, no one was doing that. And now doctors will even recommend it just because it's a nice, clean, even number. So we want to do the same thing. We want people to be able to track their mental health. That will bring more awareness to mental health, and then they can improve their mental health through various tools and guides and things that we provide for them.
Yeah, how has technology helped mental health care?
Well, it's done so amazingly because mental health challenges are often seen as an invisible challenge, and people kind of, I suppose, in the past have either brushed it away as not really being there, or just saying snap out of it, or just a lot of scrutiny or disbelief. And the ability to measure some of these things shows evidence that there are differences in the brain activity that indicate various things. You can measure sadness, depression. There's all sorts of things in the brain that you can measure, and that shows that sheds light on that this is a real thing. Even though you can't see it, you can actually measure it, and so that brings, of course, more awareness to it. There's also tools like mine, but also other things like there's something called deep brain stimulation, where that's a serious invasive device. It's a surgery that goes into your brain, and then it stimulates also with electricity. It stimulates your brain, and that's shown very promising results to help people with depression. I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of technology in the future that will stimulate you or modify your brain activity in various ways to produce certain outputs. Some of them will be clinical, like getting rid of depression or dealing with autism or schizophrenia or whatever. And some of them will be, I don't know what the right word is, let's say cosmetic right now, or an enhancement's way better, which would be, making someone focus at like 10,000%, or augmenting someone's intelligence by connecting their memory to the internet. And then every single time you think or you want to access a memory, you can actually access the internet, and which means you've basically got the internet for your memory. So you can think about anything. There's all sorts of things that can happen. The Matrix, that could actually, there's all sorts of things that technology can do, and I believe will do. So it's a very exciting space to be in, and a lot of really cool, exciting things are happening.
Yeah, how does it feel for you to be combining all these elements?
I love it. It's funny you asked. I was having a moment earlier today where I was just reflecting on how fortunate I am to be in this situation and to be in the position I am, because I've been wanting to help people with mental health for 25 years, and I've thought neurotech was super cool. I actually even wrote a book about the future of neurotech back when I was in college, but at that time the only way that I would ever even get my hands on neurotech was if I was an engineer, because you actually required more engineering skills than psychology skills. So at the time I thought, there's no way I'm ever going to work with neurotech, so I'm just going to do the therapist route, which was fine. But now I'm kind of doing both, which was something I never thought I would be able to do. And it's my company along with two other co-founders, and it's just the best deal in the world as far as what I want to do with my life right now. And I was just having a moment earlier today where it's saying it's all coming together, and I'm just so fortunate and blessed. And if it was 10 years ago or 10 years in the future, the time or a couple of years, the timing would have been off and it wouldn't have worked out. But just with the timing, it's and a lot of luck and failure and success and mistakes and victories and all sorts of things. It all just came together very, very well, at least for right now. And I'm just very pleased to be here.
And also, you have a group on the Mighty that brings a lot of people together. How does it feel for you to talk to other people with lived experiences?
Yeah, so that's also part of what I was thinking when I was thinking about how grateful, because for those who don't know, the Mighty is the world's biggest social media platform for mental health challenges. And there's people, it's just imagine Facebook, but people go there to post about, well, usually very upsetting things. People are, about depression or anxiety, or they'll make a post and saying, I have cancer, or a loved one has cancer. How do I deal with this? Or how do I deal with, my son has autism, or I have autism. How do I deal with this? It's a lot of hard things like that. But they have 3.5 million users now. And during COVID, when I was just sitting around not doing a whole lot, I wanted to get involved with helping people. And so I found this platform and I just started posting. But instead of asking, when most of it was people were struggling, I was posting positive things and tools and help and commenting on people's posts and all sorts of things. And I wrote a couple articles, and that started to go well. So then I built this group called Conquer Your Mind, and that worked out very well because it was a different style than all the other ones for the most part. Because all the other ones were very problem based, and mine was overcoming and
Yeah.
success based. So it worked out very well. And now there's 115,000 followers. So it's been 4 years, and it's been a joy. Despite the fact that people only speak to me because they're upset, it's still, and with terrible problems and things. It's still a joy that I can do this and that people trust me, a complete stranger with their and public, because they post all these things
Yeah.
are posted, for the whole world to see in the group, and very serious things and tragedies, but also great success stories, because sometimes there's some users who are there for a long time, and you can kind of follow their path, and in the beginning they may be struggling with these things, and then they'll share their victories, and then they'll fall back but keep going, and it's a wonderful way to follow people's progress and see that this is actually making an impact. A lot of people just pop in and out for a couple posts or whatever, and that's fine too. But I get to know some people pretty well, even though I don't know what they look like or even their real name, because they have some kind of username that has nothing to do with, like Fatboy502 or whatever, just something, I don't know who they are. I don't even know if it's a male or female or whatever. It could be anything. And then it doesn't matter. The point is, I don't know anything about them other than what I can read
Yes.
from their progress. And so that's cool just to be able to do that. It's really rewarding. And so I go on there, every day, all the time. I'm on there all the time. Actually, I have to force myself to take breaks because otherwise it just gets too much. But there's always people online, and it's a great community. And I really like these people, and I just feel so blessed that they trust me to share their most intimate problems.
And I'm a member as well, and I live with bipolar disorder too. So hearing the stories of success or people going through tough times and then being successful, you know, do a whole lot for me more than, data and something like that.
Yep, yep. I bet it's also because it's a very quiet community. Like we're on Facebook, people will post a million things, and if someone posts something, you'll see all people responding, whatever. But on this platform, people post a lot more seldomly, and the responses that people post are little. But a lot of people are there quietly and just watching or listening, and they get inspiration from knowing that other people have the same situations that they're in, and that they're not alone. And then they can hear about people's strategies, or just knowing that someone had the exact same type of challenge that they had is reassuring, because they don't feel like there's something specifically wrong with them. And they know that it's okay to have these challenges, and there's hope, and there's recovering, or at least improving is possible. So that's a big part of the platform, is just knowing you're not alone, and that there's 3.5 million people only on the platform, and clearly, obviously, a lot more in the whole world that have
Right.
these situations and conditions. What I try to do is mostly just listen, because a lot of people, no one has listened to them about these things, and they felt that they can't talk to anybody. So first, just listening and being there, just supportive, that alone makes a big deal, makes a big impact. But then, and then people will ask me about a lot of things. Some things I don't know. People ask me about how to deal with schizophrenia, which I have no experience with, but I do know how to deal with depression and anxiety and sadness, and all sorts of all these sorts of emotional things, and then I can just give. I usually just say, well, this is what I did, or this is how I deal with these things, and it's mostly just my experience. I don't have a tool book or tool set or anything. I just it's like I know what worked for me, and I know that and I know that I'm not special. There's nothing special about me. So if something works for me, it can work for someone else. And I think the biggest challenge with people confronted with depression, for example, is the belief that there's nothing they can do and that they're stuck. And I hear so many times people say, once you're depressed, you're always depressed. That's a very common idea to believe it if you're depressed. So for the first thing I like to do is just kind of prove, hey, you can actually get out of this. You got to put the work in, but you have to, but you can. Just like if you want to get in shape, if you put the work in, there's no one who's out of bounds of getting shape, getting in physical health. Just like there's no one who's out of bounds of getting in good mental health. You just have to put in the work and put in dedication, change parts of your lifestyle. So I also offer tools like that. Well, like because a lot of people might not know, well, what kind of activities in life or behavior are conducive to having a good mental health. And I talk about, the importance of mindfulness and meditation and mental health exercise. I do that still. I try to do that an hour every day in the evenings. I love it. And then every moment I can remember just to ground myself. Every second I can remember to do that throughout the day, I just try to just ground myself, because it was a reminder that when these thoughts attack you, which they will, it's so often that we want to like stare at them and get tunnel vision, and we think about these thoughts, and then we fight them, and then we wish that they're not there. And the more that we do that, the more we drive ourselves crazy. So what we actually have to do is just kind of the opposite, which is counterintuitive, but you have to just kind of let it go and not resist, and just allow a thought that's hurtful to be there. Sometimes even inviting it, say, okay, just come and give me your best shot. And then when you do that, it actually is like, well, it's just a thought. It can't actually hurt you more than, it's just a thought. Just like, it's not going to do anything to you more than the idea of a hamburger isn't actually going to feed you. It's the same thing. Like the idea of how awful you are isn't actually going to hurt you, because if you're just like, well, so what? Or I'm not good looking, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm incapable, or I'm too awkward, or I'm too dumb, or all these things which you attack yourself with don't have any power, if that makes sense. So it's a hard habit to get into. It's a hard, even though you can understand it intellectually, it's very hard to actually experience that and have these thoughts come. So it's a habit that you have to practice. Just like any skill you want to get good at, you have to practice. But you can do it, and anyone can do that, because thoughts are the same for everybody. They're just these things flying around, and we give attention to them, and that's what defeats us. So I also try to help people with how to reframe or adjust what you're paying attention to. If you're paying attention to terrible thoughts, you're going to think terrible things. If you're paying attention to more positive things, you'll start thinking that. There's a lovely quote that I like. This goes something like, you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. So if you're upset, you're going to think the world is a terrible place. If you're feeling really good, you're going to think the world is paradise. So it's a lot of these little tools of just reframing or habits or exercise that you can do, anyone can do at home. You don't need to, get a yoga mat and take an hour of your time and light incense and then just do like this, you don't have to do all that. You could do mental health exercises when you're brushing your teeth, when you're driving your car, when you're making your food, anytime. I could do it right now. Even right now, I can still ground myself, even though I'm quite actively involved in this conversation.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
Yeah, good question. So in the evenings, there's a mental health teacher that I like. His name is Muji, but there's loads of mental health teachers that have free videos online. They all have their different styles. So what I would recommend is, well, what I do is I like to watch videos by Muji, the way that he presents mental health, the way that he presents these thoughts in the mind. It's very direct, and I just like that. And so I try to watch his videos. He's gotten more videos online than I'm ever going to see, and so there's basically an unlimited amount. I like to watch that. I also have post-its, like I've got a post-it here with just some little things to like, oh yeah, just to remind myself. Just for example, something that's written there is uh, about no next. And for me, that means it's so easy to get caught up into, well, what am I going to do next? And whenever you make an accomplishment, you have to do the next one, and then whenever you reach a goal, it's like, well, there's more goals, and then you get caught up in all the things. The top of one mountain is the bottom of an even bigger mountain, and that could be and that's great in life because there's so many things you can do, but it's a very important just be like, okay, but where I am right now is also totally good and totally fine. And it's great to have goals. It's great to be ambitious, but don't get so caught up in those things that you don't appreciate where you are right now. So I have these post-its. I have books. I work for a company, that we're building a company where we're talking about mental health. So there's always talk about that. And so that's good. But I've set up my apartment so there's things that remind me about the importance of mental health. Because the more that I'm reminded, the more I can also. It's so easy to get caught up in something that's bothering you, and you can get tunnel vision. You get it for days and weeks or months or however long, and then you forget you can do it for so long that you forget that you are so fixated on something that's bothering you. But if you practice snapping out of it, you're like, oh, okay, this is everything's actually fine. There's just this one little thing that's just feels like it's destroying my life. But if you just kind of brush that out, you're like, oh, okay, 99 things are great, but one thing is terrible. Like it's things are fine. All it takes is one thing to make you feel like everything's awful, even though 99 things could be amazing. So there's lots of things that I have to just try to remind me of the stillness that is within you, and the more you are in touch with stillness, the less you will be in touch with the noise and chaos that's driving you nuts.
What is it like creating a business from the ground up?
Oh, it's very tough. It's very tough. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody unless you're ready for um it's so much work. And we when we were building this, we thought things were going to go so much better, things would be smoother than they actually were. Uh we made a million mistakes. We dealt with so many problems. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much ups and downs. Like the roller. I mean, life is already really tough. And if you start a company, you're just putting just an insane amount of ups and downs, additional ups and downs on your life. So it's quite a journey. It's a lot of work. You really have to put a lot of effort into taking care of yourself, because we've been at it for 2 years. It took 2 years to get where we are right now, and it's just starting to. Well, now we're feeling very, very good, but not too long ago, we were in a very intense place of uncertainty and not knowing if we were going to make it, and it took 2 years to get here. So you're going to have to deal with 2 years of uncertainty, which is a lot, and um, the only unless you're just overly insanely in love with the idea of what you're doing and just have an irrational amount of faith in your ability to pull this off, and are with at least, well, I think it's great to do this alone would be tough. I'm glad I've got my two co-founders. They're amazing, so I'm delighted I get to be with them and we get to support each other. But if you're going to be alone, that's going to be even more difficult. So I would really recommend, if you're going to do this kind of type of venture, to have some kind of support system, family or something, because it is challenging. I wouldn't trade it for anything. Even when we were, things weren't necessarily going well. I was like, I'm glad I tried, but it's a lot of work, and it's super tough.
Where do you want to see your mission, say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I there's a lot more that I want to do with neurotech. Right now, we're helping with mental health at the office, and I would love to get into more. And we're not a medical grade device, so we can't diagnose people with anything. We can just we say we can show signs of things, or or you look like you're very stressed, or less stressed, or very relaxed, but we can't like diagnose you as you are stressed.
Yeah.
But one thing I would like to do is get more into medical grade stuff, right? And I'd really like to get into depression and work with that. But also outside of mental health, there's also a lot of really more fun things that I'd also like to do, like games and interacting with devices and more, kind of like matrix type stuff where you're using your mind with a brain computer interface to control things. And that sort of ability will be coming more and more into our lives pretty soon because this type of technology is getting cheaper and a lot more people are getting excited about it. And with companies like Elon Musk's company, it's getting more in the mainstream. Um, but I'd love to just I would love there's so many things I'd like to do with this because and essentially the user everywhere there's people there is the mind and you use the mind for everything that people do, which means that there's some application there for neurotech somehow. You just have to figure out how. And with unlimited resources, I'd love to get involved in everything. But right now, the first thing I'd like to do is more clinical stuff, and then games as well.
How can people reach out and learn more?
Well, depending on what they want, if they want to do for mental health advice, they could go
Yeah.
to the Mighty and they could find me there. They could also go to my company's website is called Hird. It's HIRD. And it's Hird.io. The reason it's called Hird is because we're a Nordic company and we're in Denmark. And in Old Norse, Hird is like a protector or a savior, and so people to we want to be people's savior when it comes to mental health. And it's a bit of play on words because we also want people to be heard. Because a lot of people aren't heard when it comes to their mental health needs. So anyway, you could look at Hird.io or find me on LinkedIn. Um, yeah, that should be. Or I'm also on Instagram where I post mental health videos.